Hi friends! I love to decorate using vintage pieces, and I particularly like it when the piece has a story that I know about, because I walk around my home and it evokes memories and feelings. So in this video, I'm going to tell you the stories behind some of the vintage pieces I have in my home, and I'm going to talk about a piece that I really wish I knew the story behind. Welcome to the Dress Up Mom. If you're already a subscriber, thank you, and I love you. If you haven't subscribed, please do, and tap the bell for notifications. I'm going to start with this silver tray. Now, it looks like just like a regular silver tray. It is really pretty because it has some of this etching here, and I like that it's kind of simple here, but has this really pretty outside etching to it. And I've used this a bunch of different ways in my home for decoration in a kind of a cabinet, but I've also used it to put things in a bathroom, and I do use it actually when I'm entertaining as a tray. Now, the reason that this is so special is because it was my grandmother's. Now, it wasn't just a little tray that my grandmother had. My grandmother had to flee a country during the war and could only take a few pieces with her. This is one of the pieces that she took. Now, she had to cart this around all over the place, and I really wish that I could ask her the story behind this. I was very close to my grandmother, but I did not inherit this piece until after she passed, and my mom gave it to me and told me that it was something that she took with her from the war. Now, she was a minimalist and didn't bring hardly anything with her, so this had to be pretty special. So I'm taking good care of it, and I keep it passed down along the line, but I really think of her and her amazing story whenever I use this piece. Next is this Santa. How adorable is he? It's a little bell. It is from 1958. It is my husband's. And the reason I know that is because etched inside of it here, you can't see, but it says Doug 58, and he was born in 57. We were told he got this as a gift when he was 1 year old, and this has made it with him this whole entire time. And we put him out every Christmas. I keep him in a nice cabinet safe where he's seen all year round, but we bring him out. He has a special place every Christmas, and just makes me think about Doug and his family growing up, and it always brings a smile to our face. Next is this artwork. This was actually created by my uncle, my mom's twin brother. It was probably done in the 50s. He's very artistic, ended up becoming a really good architect, working way into his 80s, still loving it. And we had this up in our house the whole time I remember growing up. It was in various places, but I loved it. I thought it was so cool. The colors, it was sort of modern, a little bit abstract, but also felt very California and palm tree like, and I thought it was so cool. So I asked my mom a while back if I could have it, and she did give it to me, and now I've had it in my home in various places for the last 20 years or so. And it also brings back great memories. I think of my uncle and my whole family sort of growing up in the 50s, and him in art class and college sort of creating this. And super special. I love it. I'll pass it down too. Next are these two bottles. Now, these are probably more than 100 years old. This one says Rochester, New York on it. It was for kidney and liver cure. And this one doesn't really say, but it does say, oh gosh, it says 1872 on it. So these are old, but I really love them, and they came from my husband's ancestors, his grandmother, I believe, and her family, a farm that they would go and spend their summers on in Ashby, Massachusetts. And I hear him talk about this farm all the time and the great memories that they created there. So we keep these out in our house. I sometimes put dried flowers in them. I have them up as in a decoration in our room. And not only do I sort of like them and like the color and the shapes and everything about them, But when we look at them, we think about the summers and growing up and being carefree and just keep a little bit of that spirit with us. This piece of art is also super special to me, and this is actually something that is mine. I vividly remember the LA Olympics in 1984. I was working at Mattel Toys. My uncle was there with me, and Mattel was a big sponsor of the Olympics. So this is actually one of the Olympic flags that was flown all throughout the city during the Olympics. We got some of them at Mattel, and my uncle gave it to me, and I've had it framed and in my home ever since then. Now, there's a couple reasons that I think this is super special. I am an Olympic freak. I've always loved the Olympics since I was a little girl. Again, mostly the stories behind the athletes and just watching the world come together in this way to compete, but also unite. And I've just loved watching them. So when they were actually in town in LA, I got to go and see some of the sports and activities that were going on, some track and field, some basketball. It was just so much fun. The other thing that I remember is LA so came together for those 2 weeks. It was amazing. The city was cleaned up. All the big corporations did things where they let people work off hours so that there wouldn't be a bunch of traffic. There was no traffic in LA all during that 2 weeks. It was like a different place. And it made me realize that if people can do that and come together, what is possible? Also, 1984, right after the Olympics, is when I met my husband, Doug. So it's a very important year to me, and I like being reminded of all those things every time I look at this piece of art. Now, I also have some art and things in my home that I just so wish I had the story behind, and these pieces here are one of those. So I bought these at my favorite vintage shop in San Diego called Bad Madge, and they are string art. Look how cool this is. I love the wood behind, and then the nails are creating the background, and then all of this string in these different colors, my favorite colors, moved along to make this art. I love how they look in my home. Now, these are fairly new to me, but they're old, and you can see that somebody named CJ put their initials on there. I would love to know CJ's story. Who are you, CJ? Where did you get this idea? I picture in my head what CJ looks like now. I picture it to be a man in the 70s, kind of long blonde hair, just sort of doing his thing with this string art. But I would just love to know the story, and also like where these have been and what other homes have they been in, if they could just talk and tell me. Those are some of my favorite things in my home and the stories behind them. Do you do this? Do you love to surround yourself with these vintage pieces with stories? I would love to know in the comments below. Thank you so much for tuning in. I so appreciate it. Until next time, have some fun and dress it up a little.